Hello, this is the Arpeggio Games development stream for Song of the Firefly. We're going to be looking at some setting up of our character today, so that he hopefully will end up looking a little more like this, and blocking out one of our areas for our next demo. So, let's get started, shall we? Let's take it into the character blueprint to start. Okay. So, here's our character. We're going to swap out this mesh to start with. Let's try doing that. Okay. So we need to use this animation blueprint and edit that. Let's find it in our content browser. This is controlling all of the animation. See, our character's now Sam. Pile error, that's to be expected. We copied this over from an earlier version of the engine, so there are going to be a few problems. I might start with a new blueprint actually. That'll make things a bit easier. So create animation blueprint. There we go. And pick a skeleton and off we go. Blueprint 2. So here we go. Let's take to our event graph, and we want to try and copy most of this. So we'll start with this. Just checking if this is valid. Okay. Yeah, and we need to cast to test character 2. Which is our current character class. We've recently done some overhauling of the game engine, so we're still in a bit of a prototype. But nope, let's not do that. Swap out the animation blueprint for the new one. Compile that, and we should get no change. That's what we expect. Oh, why is it doing that? Oh dear. Oh. Save. See if that helps now. That's a bit weird. Ah, here we are. No, still problems. That's odd. Shouldn't at this point be reading from that animation blueprint, but let's have a quick look. Okay. 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 Damn it! This is a problem. Okay. Right. Right, sorry about that. Thought there was an issue with the audio, but apparently not. Right. I'll continue on here and see if we can work out what the problem is with this. And or get back to actually building this. So this is our current build of the game. It's very simple. Walking backwards and forwards with no animation because the animation's not quite working at the moment. But we'll soon sort that out. What are these arrows? Never mind, they're from an earlier run of the game. Okay. Let's take another look at this. Okay, so our mesh is use animation blueprint. I'm going to just reselect our character and pick the new animation blueprint and see if that helps. There are sometimes a few issues with changing an animation blueprint at certain points. There we go, that's a bit better. We still won't get any animation because we haven't programmed it yet, but we're not getting the errors anymore. That's good. Okay, so let's get back to programming this. So, where's our older version gone? I think I accidentally closed it. Let me open that up again. Here we are. So, we need a few variables. Get that direct from the pawn owner, which is a character. And okay, so we need to create this variable is in air. So if we just go down to here, add a variable is in air, name it the same, then this has now gone red to show that we actually can use it, and we'll set that. Okay, we're not going to bother with is on ledge or is crouching at the moment. These are features which we haven't yet added into the new version of the engine, but we can do is jumping, I believe. We're going to have to deal with it slightly differently because of the new engine. So let's use jumping. Make that variable. Set it. And we want to set that to target jumping. So if we take this target, this is our target. Let's see what we have. Player wants to jump, but we may have to add into the character graph what actually happens when you jump. Okay. So, let's have a look. Here we are. Yes, we can do this. I believe. So, I'm going to need to add some extra clauses to this. Based on an older version of the engine, because we're doing some interesting things. So I'm going to open the older version of the engine and see if we can't copy across a few things from the jumping logic into the new one. The new one's still very much a work in progress, but it's allowing us to do a lot more interesting things with the movement. So it should allow the game to run a little bit smoother. So here's the older version of the game. This is the version that we showed in our very first demo video. Okay, that is something that's worth looking at, but I'll deal with in a minute. Okay, we're over here somewhere. Jump. Okay. Can jump, set jumping, start jumping. Okay. So, can jump. We can just use this for now. So we'll take that and we'll copy that condition. So let's show the inherited variables because they'll be down here. So character movement, and we need is moving on ground, and that's our condition. This is for something else, so we don't actually need that. So this is now our new condition. So we need a branch. Yep. Just put this off to the side for now. In fact, I'll move the whole thing backwards a bit because we're going to need a little more space. Bring that over there. Okay, now we'll find out what reset gravity. Okay, that's not a problem. We don't need to bother with that because of the new version of the engine, I don't think. We may need to, but we'll find out. We'll go without it for now. So now we can create a new variable that decides to be jumping. And we'll set that to true. Okay, and then we try start jumping, which I believe, yep, just does exactly the same as this jump command, I think. But we had a little bit of it for now. We had a little bit of extra logic to allow you to jump under certain extra circumstances, but we'll leave it to this for now. So, if we just drag this into here instead, then this should set when we want to jump, or when we actually are jumping, which is good. However, it won't set when we land again. So, in fact, I will make this macro is on ground as a little macro here. Have our output as a boolean result. In fact, we don't even need that, we'll just put a space there so I have a little blank output, which is nice because it should be fairly obvious what this is doing. And we'll just cut those, paste them into here. Here we are. And this means that we can change this condition at a later date without having to change places in the code more than once, which is nice. Okay, so now I've got this little macro. Compile that. And instead of this condition, we can just use this isOnGround macro. Here we are. And that gives us exactly the same. Now we can also find the event tick and add this macro here, so that if we're on the ground, false. Need to branch first, so that if we're on the ground, we say we're no longer jumping, and then continue with the extra bits of code. Tell you what, I'll add a nice little reroute node here, which makes things a little bit more manageable. Drag that over into this branch, and that should be good there. So now when we go into the blueprint, we can take this. Oops, I forgot to set the variable so I can actually access it. Where's it gone? Or forgot to save. Nope. Interesting. Don't want to set it to editable because that makes it okay. So let's, for now, I will close down the older version of the engine because that's shouldn't be necessary anymore. And let's take another look at this blueprint. Click compile. Interesting. Should let us access this. Not sure why it isn't. There we are. It's interesting. Let's just set that there. That should do it. Right. So we did need that. We were going to copy... No, we don't. We need this that we're copying. Okay, now this we'll deal with later. As you can see, this is positioning the lantern to ensure it stays in sync with the animations. We will deal with that in a bit. Okay. So let's start with this. This is an important one. That's, again, not implemented yet, so we'll ignore that. Okay, so we need this and here. So what this does is this gets our movement speed, not including jumping and such, and allows us to tweak the running animation to match our speed. So if I make a variable there, that's going to be complaining because I'm putting the wrong kind of variable into it. So I need to actually get rid of that to allow me to change this to a float. I'll set the speed as this, and then drag the execution from here to here. So we still haven't got any animation going, but we've started setting up some of the variables we need. Okay, these are actually in use for water, so we can play splash effects. These are not important for now because, again, not implemented yet. So now what we need to do is actually copy the animation graph. So this is our state machine, which we need to recreate. So I can remember how to do this. Yes, there we are. That's how you do it. New state machine, animation state. Let's call it that. Let's put this here. So this is going to be the state machine that will describe. It's a little piece of logic describing how our animations will work, and we almost want to copy this exactly from this one. So this is describing when we're in which bit of animation. So idle run, we'll start with that. Oops, that's not the right one. Add state, which we're going to call idle run. We're not going to copy all of this because, as I say, some features haven't been implemented, but that's not what I wanted to do. We want to get into this and define what's going on there. Okay. Okay, so we'll get this blend space in. This, I'll show you what this does. This is a blend space, which is our running animation, which lets us put in a value and blend that with the idle animation. Which means if we put a relatively low value in, we get a very sort of slow shamble. Later versions of the game will replace this with a proper walking animation. But as we speed up, we get the full-on running animation. Now, these animations are temporary for now, but we're hoping to replace them soon. And you remember I set that speed variable earlier? Well, I can set that here. Now, what should happen if I click here, you can see we can now walk around and we've got a running animation. However, we haven't sorted out jumping yet, so all we've got is standing and running. But that's going well so far. Okay. So, what do we have next? That's our first piece of the state machine. Oops. We need to go to the graph. Oh, no, we want to go back to the state machine. Now, jump start. This is our animation for beginning a jump. This is a sort of crouch and leap animation. So we'll once again we'll make a new node. Oops. New state. Jump start. And once again we'll try and copy this over. So this is slightly different because we don't need to blend two animations together. We can just play an animation. So play, jump start. There we go. We're not going to be implementing all the animation, as I say, because again some features aren't implemented, but here's our jump start animation. It's just a sort of little jump, but we will blend this eventually with the falling animation. Oops, shouldn't have closed that. And see how that goes. Okay, so we need to open this again because I was stupid and closed it. There we are. So now we go back to the state machine, and this time we need to copy this here. So here we're using the is in air variable, which means if we're in the idle run state and the is in air variable is true, then we'll move to the begin the jump state. Okay, that's good. Go back to the state machine. There it is. Now this has is in air written next to it, so that's good. Now ledge grabbing we're not going to bother with because that's not implemented, and crouching we're not going to bother with because that's also not implemented. However, we are going to do falling and landing. So falling is the next one. So this is again just another play animation. So add state. Falling. So this is for when you're in the air and you're now moving downwards. So the jump start animation is you leaping into the air, and the falling is you getting into the state where you're on the ground, or heading towards the ground at least. So we want to play Sam fall. Excellent. And this one we want to loop, because this we can play as long as we want. Notice there's a bit of weirdness, and this will be sorted when we redo the animations. It's because of an older version of the engine, which we're now getting rid of. We're not going to bother with that at the moment, but we will before we release. So, what's next? Yes, we need the states. State graph, where have we gone? Graph, there we are. We need the state machine, which is here. So we have two ways we can move into this animation. First of which is if the time remaining for our jump start animation is less than 0.1 seconds, which means we're at the end of it. So search for time remaining for... Oh, sorry, that's not right. It's time remaining ratio, which is not 0.1 seconds, it's 0.1 of, so it's 10% of the animation. So if we make this, oh, happens occasionally, so less than 0.1, then drag this into here. Now what we can actually do is, instead of setting this up as two separate ones like in the previous, which I think was because they were set up at different times, can actually use an OR node, I think. Unless there was a very good reason why I didn't do that, which is possible. Just double check this. Just check the transition rule and bidirectionality and all of this. Ah, yes, there was a reason. See, we changed the duration here, which means it takes a very short time when you move from jump start to falling, but a longer time when you move to landing. So we'll not use an OR node because we'll try and mimic that behaviour. So, if we just get rid of that, compile, and go back to the state machine. Right, and we set this to 0.2, that's what we had before. So we just drag another arrow from here to here, and that creates a new transition, which is this one. Now we're going to create a not node, which means something's not true, and now, oops, mistyped, is in air. So this is if you're on the floor and you are actually starting to jump, then we just skip straight ahead to falling, rather than try and go through the whole jump animation first. And for this, we want to set this duration to 0.5 as we had it before. Now I just want to double check what the duration from idle to run to jump start was. Just to be doubly sure, that was 0.2, and I think it's the same on here. Yes, okay. So now, if I save and compile this, and start this, what should happen is I should now go into the jumping animation. Yes, there we go. You'll notice I don't land yet, but that's because we haven't sorted out the landing animation. See, in this state machine, there's no way of getting from falling back to idle and run. So, we need to add this section now. So we need landing. Again, this is just another play animation node. So I will, oops, getting ahead of myself. Land. So, just drag it here one step at a time. So now we'll play the landing animation. There we are. And that should, yeah, okay, that should do that. Now if we need to check these conditions. I think this is just, yes, not is in air. So, best check what the duration is on that, because I think these ones are a little different. Ah, that one's 0.1, you see. So set this to 0.1. And the transition logic oops, I need a not node again. Oops, not equal, that's a different thing. Not Boolean. So here what we have is that when we are in the falling animation and we are deemed to no longer be on the ground, then we make this transition into the landing animation, which is right. Now, lastly, we just bring this back to the idle run animation. And this, I think, is just a case of, yep, time remaining less than 0.1 and the 0.3 on the transition time. So let's just set that to 0.3 now. And we also need to go into the logic. Make a less than node, which I believe is 0.1 again. And time remaining ratio. We'll compile that. And now, when we play, we should be able to... Oops, something's gone a bit wrong there. What's going on there? So, something's gone a little bit wrong. But we'll soon work out what it is and sort it out. Excuse me a second. Okay, let's just give that another try and see what the see if we can work out what the problem is. Okay, so jump, land, okay. Okay. Interesting. What we'll do is I will bring this up. See if I can watch what's going on while this happens. So oh dear, I just knocked over a glass of water onto my desk. That's no good. Excuse me for just 1 second. Okay, that was rather unfortunate. Right. Okay, so let's take a look at this animation blueprint and what's going on with it. So we'll select the debug option as this. So we can now see what's going on. I'm going to drag this onto my other screen so you can watch the animation blueprint as I'm doing it. You won't be able to see what Sam's doing, but I'll try and talk you through it. So I'm now walking along, now I'm jumping, falling, landing. That one worked okay. Now this, as we can see, landing is lasting for a lot longer than it should. So I think we may need to change how the landing animation works. So if I just stop there and go to the other animation blueprint, just take a look how we did this. Okay. Yes. So here we've got loop off, whereas before we had loop on because I'd forgotten to change it. So I'm going to drag this window back in and we'll see if that's helped. Yes, it has. Now there's a bit of a glitch at the peak of his jump, and I believe that's the same bug caused by me forgetting to set the jump start animation. So I need to stop this off loop as well. So if I do that and click play, then things are a little smoother. So now we've got the ability to walk around, jump, and all the animation plays nicely. That all seems to work quite well. Okay. So, what we're now going to do is get into some of the game logic. We've set up some animation, but as you may notice, one of Sam's key features in this game is his lantern, and if you look closely, he doesn't have his lantern. So we're going to sort that out. So what we need to do, select Sam, turn on simulation, there we are. There we are, we've got some animation now so we can see what's going on. Okay, so what we need to do is add a component, and we want to add another blueprint, so we need child actor component, and this will be Sam's lantern. Now, child actor class, I believe we have the lantern class in here somewhere. Here we are, see there's a little light that appeared there. If I move that across, we've got a lantern. It's a bit sideways, but we'll sort that out. So we just need to work on a rotation. I think that should be minus 90. Oh, not minus, just 90. There we are. Now, I think we're also missing the loop from the lantern, which I need to copy over from the older version of the engine, which isn't too hard. It's just in the shapes folder. Sorry, I'm just copying something across. Thin torus. Okay, so now we can add, now that I've done that, we can add a static mesh component, which will be lantern ring. And the mesh we're using will be thin torus. You can see the outline over here already, and that's that. Now we want to rotate this around the z-axis by 90 degrees so that Sam can hold it. Position it on the lantern. We'll set the material in a second. Okay, so it appears to be positioned quite nicely on top of the lantern. We'll just see if we can move it down slightly. It doesn't seem to want to go. Oops. Zoom out a little bit, gives a better view. Doesn't seem to like me today. Oh, I will. See if we can move it numerically. Let's try 8.5. Let's try 9. Perfect. Now we need to set the material for this. Now we actually don't want collisions on this at all, so I'll turn those off now. So we're not bothered about whether this can hit things or not. All we want is to make the graphics. Now, what do we want? Materials. They're around here somewhere. Where have they gone? Rendering, here we are. So we'll just add a material here. And we've got a nice little cast iron material there. We set that, and the material now matches the lantern. So now we've got a nice little lantern. I'm just going to make that lantern ring a child of the lantern, so when we drag this lantern around, the ring moves with it. Excellent. Now what we need to do is use this parent socket. So we're going to drag this into the under the mesh and browse parent sockets. Now Sam carries this in his left hand, and we've actually already set up a socket in his left hand. Now sockets are little things that follow bones around the mesh. So I've now hooked that up to Sam's left hand. Now see, it's miles away, but it is bouncing up and down in rhythm with Sam's hand, which is what we're looking for. Now, just zoom out a little bit. Unreal's not playing nice with my Wacom today. So if we just undo that rotation, and undo that rotation, or not, or we 180 that rotation. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set this rotation to world rotation, and change that back to 90. There we are. Because this means... Oops. Losing my earpiece. This means that Sam will walk around, and regardless of what he does, the lantern will stay upright, which is quite a nice little feature. Now we need to drag this. We do, however, want the position to be relative, because we want to drag this to a position that is roughly where we want. So let's just set the location to 0 on the Y. Okay, that's not quite right. Go to 100. That's far, far too far. Let's try 10. Ah, we're going the wrong way. That's why. Let's try minus 15. Not quite enough. Minus 20. Unreal's not playing quite very nicely with my Wacom today, so I'm doing a lot of numerical things. There we are, that's a little better. Now, if we just set the Z to 0, that's close, but it's a little far back. So if we set the X to 0, that moves it further back. So we actually want this to be about 5, I think. Not quite. So let's move the Y up a bit. There's a lot of trial and error involved in this. As you can see, move it back a little bit. That looks quite nice. You just got to line it up with his hand, so it's nice and neat. Okay, that's good. So now, if you remember when we did the animation blueprint earlier, we went to our event graph. When we looked at the older animation blueprint, this one, which currently has errors because we're using different things, we had this bit of thing, positioning the lantern relative to the socket to ensure sync with animation. So I'll show you why we do that. Because, see, we now have our lantern positioned, but as we walk, you may notice that it's occasionally slipping out of his hand under fast movement. So when we turn around, for example, the lantern slips back into his wrist for a frame or so. Now that's undesirable, so what we've done is we used this to collect information about where the socket should be and where the lantern should be, and set it as we're setting the animation. It's a little bit of a performance overhead, but it allows the lantern not to get lost, so it's worth it. So let's start by connecting that. Ooh. Can't do that, so we'll mesh. Ah, of course, we need to use the test character too. So we'll connect that up. There we got our mesh. Connect this up. See if we can find, there we are, lantern. Just doing a little autosave. And we'll drop that in there. Get rid of that node. Now, as you can see, we're using the left-hand socket here, and then we're just adding an offset to it. Now, I think we've got a bit of a better offset here with what we have in here, which is 4 minus 22, 0, but this is that's for relative location, whereas this is absolute location, so that's a little bit different. So now, this actually works quite well, but now when we walk around, the lantern stays very firmly fixed on Sam's hand, which is nice. Now, what's actually getting quite annoying is the some of the post-processing effects. We haven't quite set up the camera for this yet, so if I turn off bloom on this, I think it is. Ah, no, hang on. I will go into... It's all turned off there, but if I turn off in the render effects global post-process, if I just disable depth of field for now. It's a nice effect, very lovely effect, but we'll keep that off for now. So we'll turn that off. It's not quite worked. Turn that back up, 2.5, and we'll just scale by 0. So that should turn off the depth of field. Nope, hasn't, for some reason. Interesting. Am I setting it somewhere? So that hasn't turned off the depth of field, unfortunately. Never mind. I'll just go to our settings. Post-processing low. That should turn off the depth of field effect. Let's turn that up. A little better. Okay, so we don't have depth of field anymore, so everything's actually in focus. Right, what are we doing? Lantern, yes. So, we've set the lantern up, so it's following Sam around, but, excuse me a second, there we are. If I just find the lantern blueprint, wherever it is, no, that's the static mesh, it's in the blueprints, I think. So, yes, lantern. So we have here our lantern blueprint. This is controlling all sorts of effects about the lantern, but we're missing this action because we've copied it over from another thing. So, we just go to input action, toggle lantern. I think this is in the project settings. Input. Toggle lantern. There we are, and we will start by setting this on the keyboard to space. Spacebar. And on a gamepad to face button top. I'm working with an Xbox One controller, so this is Y for me. So if I say Y, I mean this. That should, if I recompile this, get rid of that warning, yes. And hopefully, I don't believe I have any fireflies. Hold up. I think I'm missing a couple of the things here. Right. Where are the fireflies set? So if I go to here and test character, nope, lantern. Nope, test character 2 is where I wanted to go. Find lantern. Okay. Let's find. should be a variable called Firefly. So somewhere if I get to inherited, it shouldn't be there. Interesting. Editable, okay. Actor. So. Oh, of course, yes, of course I can't do that. So what I'm going to do instead, just a temporary measure for debugging. That's fine. These are for sorting out Sam's material. We will deal with that. I will deal with that myself later. It's not important or interesting. This is what I was looking for. Just going to add as a temporary measure. Mistyped again. I'm going to just start by giving myself 100 fireflies. Now, I don't think that's everything that's missing, but yes, there is something going on there. Now, it's difficult to see because I have this little class here, which is called Editor Light, which gives me 2 non-shadowing directional lights so I can see what I'm doing in the editor. The game itself looks more like this. So this is me in the dark. Press Y, I have light. Press Y again, turned off. On, off. On, off. On, off. Good. Now, there's also the light ring, which is a different thing. Now, I've got to try and remember how this worked. Hang on, a light ring should exist. Apparently, yes. But does it have the right material? No! Doesn't have the right material, okay. That's why I forgot to copy over the light ring material. That's easily solved. I'll just have a quick look through some of the older stuff. And light ring I'm looking for. It's there. Or not. It's not in this folder. Could be in this folder. Oh. Seems to be missing it. Well, I'll open the older file and see if I can locate it from there. Okay, so just wait for that to launch. Sometimes takes a while. In the meantime, I'm going to actually change something about the lantern blueprint. Ah, no, never mind, it's here. This is our... the window will work, there we are. It's our older version of the game. This is one of the demo areas we were showing in the demo video and some of the 4K of the day screenshots. So I'm just going to open this lantern blueprint, go to the light ring and find particles materials, there we are, and close this down now. in Lightroom. There we are. I'll just copy that straight into the character folder, the character materials folder even. And we'll get the lantern blueprint back up. And we'll set the light ring material. Compile that, save it. Now, hopefully... Oh, it hasn't worked. Okay, what's missing? No errors in the light ring material. Interesting. I'm going to open the other file again and have another look over the light ring blueprint, because as you can see in the lantern blueprint, it's currently very, very faint. That's not desirable. You may not even be able to see it on the stream. However, we are going to get this. This light ring is a little halo around the light. It allows us to looks like this. It's a little halo around the light that lets us showcase what we're treating the light a little like a shield, and this shows you exactly how wide your light is at any point. Quite a useful little thing. Let's get the lantern blueprint up. Looks like you can see the light ring on the stream, but it's very, very faint. Okay, let's have a look at the light ring. Seems to be very, very faint here as well. Doesn't look to be any different. Interesting. It's an interesting development. Okay. Tell you what, let's get the debugger up. Go to the graph, find the bit where the light ring is. Now it's toggled to refresh the graphic, but hold on, that might be the cause of something. Let's take a look. See if that's any different from here. It is. This should be M light ring. There we are, that should do it. Nope, still not. Interesting. We should be getting a little circle around Sam here. But we're not, for some reason. So, let's take this light ring. Let's find the light ring anyway. And we'll find all the references to it. I think that's okay. Okay, so I'm honestly not sure what is happening here. take another look at the debug. Oh, hello. That'll be why. That should be... Hold on. That should be true, I think. Oh, still not helping. Oh no, never mind. Hang on. That's silly me. So I'll drag this over here and oops. Let's take a look at the toggle visibility code. Come on. Sorry, toggle light code is what I meant. Okay, Firefly small equal to 0, blah blah. Let's examine. I'll let you watch the debug of this while I turn the lantern on and off. So this is the code that runs when I turn the lantern on and turn the lantern off. So that's turning it on, that's turning it off. Now let's watch this value. Not in scope, great. Helpful. So, let's instead create a little debug script. So, print the string, and the string we're going to be printing is that converted to a string, and that's all we need to do. So now, when I bring this back and press Y, we get a little thing here. That seems to be working. So it's not the visibility that's the problem. To just pause and eject. So I can have a quick look. And just need to stop. And I can delete these because it's not determined it's not a problem with the visibility. Now, what it might be a problem with is the size. So I'm going to set a watch on this, which will let me watch what the radius is doing. It should be 520. So that's working. And it's appearing in here, but it's not appearing. Interesting. Okay. So this doesn't appear to be working for some reason. Not sure why. But we can leave it for now. It's not hugely important. So we've done a bit of setting up of the character. We've got Sam's animations put in, the lantern in there. We've got some semblance of turning the lantern on and off. But that's still a work in progress. And we can walk around, animations, all of this, and that's all nice. So now what we're going to do is change the direction of this a little bit. We've done an hour or so on setting up the character, so now we're going to work a little bit on setting up the demo. So I have on my computer some concept art. Not that. These. These. And these. And I also have some others which are somewhere around here. Which are designs. So here's some of the artwork opening up now. Hopefully. So we've been working on some designs for a demo area, which is what we plan to make and prepare for our next fundraising session. If these pictures will ever load, close them down, try again. Happens sometimes. Start do them one at a time. So here we are. This is looking a bit more promising. There we are. There's one. Here's another. Here's another. So, we've been working on some design. I need to actually get the designs themselves up, because I have somewhat... we only have artwork for certain areas of it. I'm not going to be doing any of the detail today, so none of the different, all the graphics and nice shiny pictures. Instead, we're just going to be blocking out the basic bounds of the level. So, the level will be playable, but may not look very nice. It'll look like blocks. So, let me try and find these designs. They were around somewhere. Let's try here. If anyone watching on Twitch has any questions at any point, feel free to jump into the chat and we'll try our best to answer them. Okay, so no. Okay, I'll just I'll open them in there. Here. So I'm just waiting for that to load. So while I do this, let me just close down the old version of the... don't bother saving. I'm going to be using these things called BSPs. These are quite a neat way of creating basic shapes in Unreal. They're not very performant, so when we make the final thing we'll replace this with more purpose-made things, but they're a nice way of blocking things out. Okay, almost there. Okay, so let's get up the first section. The design is split into a few sections. First off, I'm going to just pick a nice colour for the sky. Go with this. So set the target colour. I'll just check this box for preview target colour. Okay, So we'll go with a nice, that's a bit bright, blue, shall we? Deep blue, make it quite dark. Let's try that. Sorry if you heard that. That was my mobile phone. I will just turn that off. Okay, so I've picked a nice blue colour for the sky. When I start the game, the sky is going to. Usually I'd turn off this. So you see the sky's gone back to the green colour. Now it's this blue. When I click play, the sky is going to change colour gradually into the blue that I picked. And this works for any colour. It's a nice feature of the game engine that we've built. It allows us a lot of flexibility with the sky. You see the moon up there. We've got orbits of that, which are defined down here, and all sorts of that. It's quite a complicated system, but it works quite nicely. Okay, so let's get this design up. Right, so our first section has a long corridor. So we've got a nice start on that already. So I'm just going to extend this corridor a little bit. Let's expand the toolbar a little bit, go to geometry editing. Okay, so we'll just select this face here. Just drag that out a bit. That should extend the BSP a little bit. Now, so we've got these. Got to put a few more of these points in now. So these are our own little proprietary system for controlling the movement of the player. They're fairly complicated, so I won't go into all the details of how it works unless someone's very interested to find out, but we'll keep it relatively straightforward for now. So this lets me walk along this corridor, good. Now, the next section of the design has a large circular room. So if I go to these concept arts, take a look through these. One of them, not this set. We have 3 sets of concept art. I think it might be this set. There's a nice little. Yes, here we are. This is set up for this round room. Some of the setups here. So yes, there's a nice little round room there. So let's start with a BSP. And we'll start with a cylinder. It's quite a low polygon one, so we'll just up the sides to 16. That's a little better. Now, move this down, and what we'll try and do is we'll try and match top. We've got it snapped to a grid, so it should be reasonably easy. Good. The Z is right, good. And then we're just going to change the outer radius to about, try 800, see if that's any good. That's a little better. So we've got a nice, wide, circular platform. Okay. Now, I'm going to do something special with these. So we've got one of these already, here. You just alt-click to drag a new one. And we'll continue this path going straight across the middle. What we're also going to do is for this one, I'm going to drop the radius to about. Tell you what, I'm actually not. I'm going to, instead of dropping the radius, We go to our blueprints, and I'm going to find IP capsule. Now, IP stands for influence point. These are what we've called our proprietary system. And let's rotate this. That's quite nice. And I can bump up the radius to about 300. Maybe not that much. 200. Yeah, there we go. Now I'll just move this camera point so it matches with the rest of them. So what this allows me to do is what I can now do is drag this out here. Actually, change my mind. I'm going to change that one as well, and I'm going to bump up the height to about 800. So this one, actually, change my mind again, bump that to 400, drop that in there, then copy that, get another one with a slightly longer half height of 500 into there. So, and now if I change the radius of this one to about 300, drop it by 100, that's quite good. What we can now do is start building paths off to the side. So, this doesn't need to be 300 at all. This can be about 200. Only needs to cross over other points' boundaries, so it doesn't need to be huge. So the radius to 200. And right. So now when we reach this point, if we keep going right, well, we only just keep going straight forwards. But if I tip up on the control, I can move over here as well. So now that I've done that, I've got a nice little setup, so I can move, I can choose at this point where I'm going to go. And I can do this equally. I can set up a path on the other side. So if I just drag this over here to the opposite side, and then do the same with this one, and again with this one, then click play, then I should be able to move to any of these paths from this point here. Notice this point's got a box around it, which is a little debugging thing that shows us that we can move to multiple places. Okay, so that seems to be working nicely. Got the nice little setup there. So we can move to a number of places, and that's very nice. Okay, so in our design, these paths go off. Each goes off on their own, into their own section. We've got a little symmetrical setup, so each of these paths takes you in a different direction. So I'm going to turn the editor light back on, because as you can see, it's getting kind of hard to see. So if I just go back into the lighting, no, it's not there. It should be there. For some reason it's inside one of the influence points, must have got moved into root for now. And stick it back in lighting. Okay, and enabled. There we go. So now I can see what's going on, which is handy. Okay, so I'm going to just drop another box down here. Just line that up with the this time I'm going to change the Y to about 2000. That's about right. Let's drag that out. Back slightly. I'm going to just copy that. So I'm not going to copy that yet. I'll do that when I'm done. So we've got this nice box brush. I'm going to copy this one. And now I'm going to make another capsule influence point. I'm going to just rotate it by 90 degrees. Oops. Oh, I seem to have gotten to gimbal lock. Rarely happens, but can't be helped. So we'll just do that. Let's turn it manually. Now, this camera point tells me where the camera is going to be at this point. So when I get into this path, I want the camera to be over here. I'd also quite like the camera, when I'm turning this corner, to be over here. So we've got a quite nice curve round as that camera goes. So I'm going to just stretch this to about 800 and just drag it along there. Yeah, that's good. And actually drag it a little bit further. And possibly bump it up to 900. Just drag that over. And yeah, that touches the end now. I won't be able to walk to the end because the point itself is in the middle, but we'll just give that a test. So now you can see we're walking quite happily along this path. We hit here and we're coming back, and we're nicely back along that path, and then we can go back along here, and back along here, and everything's good. Okay, so with that in place, what's our next section of the demo do? So this next section is quite flat. It's not a very detailed area until you get to the other side, but we are going to build it anyway. So, let's continue on, shall we? The next section is a bit of a wider area. You won't be able to walk in most of it, but I'll make it a wider box anyway. So we'll just drag this in here. Just line it up nicely with the previous one, and then what we can do is change the X to about 600 and this to about 2000 again, and we can line it up again. Now, so what we've got here is we've got a nice open space. Now what we want to do is add another influence point similar to this one over here. Now these work so you can move to any point intersecting the point you're currently at. So here you'll be able to move onto here, even though these points are really far away, you'll be able to move quite nicely between them. Okay, I might extend this actually. I think I'll bump that to 2500. I'll do a little bit of improvisation to make things a bit more interesting. So what we'll do, line that up. And what we'll also do is add another box. In fact, we'll duplicate this one. Bring it up here. Height will halve. This will make about 1000. It's just to make things, no, not 1000, 1500 say. So what we'll do is we'll just stick this on top here. And this has given us a little bit of extra space, a little bit of jump to make, so it's a little bit more interesting. Now we'll drop this half height to about 700 because this is all unused, so we don't need it. So we'll just clip that in there. Then what we'll do is lift this up and bring it across here. So now we can walk. We should be able to walk across onto there. So let's give that a test. So walking along, up here, let's go up here. Oh, something went wrong there. I think these points aren't quite crossing over enough. So we'll just bring that in a bit further and bump up the half height a bit. Let's see. See if that helps. Accidentally went the wrong way. So, as I say, this whole system is a work in progress. So there are going to be bugs. There are some issues with it, but yes, that seems to have fixed it. So now we've got this nice little jump here that we can leap off and drop down from, and that works quite nicely. Oh, there we are. So now the next bit of this area is a little bit interesting. There's some dynamics to go in here, but I won't start with that. So we'll just, for now, build the next section, which is a large spiral staircase. So, you can build spiral staircases here, but I actually want a spiral brush. That doesn't seem to work. No. Okay, so we can't use the spiral staircase because we actually want a spiral slope, not a stair. So, what we want to do we're going to create our own spiral stair using VSPs. How do we do that? Well, first of all, we're going to make a box. And drop this box into place. Again, line it all up. This is all just blocking out the level, and later, when this is all done and the level's playable like this, we'll take it in. We'll take it out, cover it all over with nice visuals and pictures and everything, and it'll look lovely. So now let's get some geometry editing. Now, what we want to do here is tick. Okay, so let's switch to the local coordinate system and you check extrude. So what we've got now is we've managed to So what we've got is we've got, go back to edit. So you see we've managed to create a new section, and by just moving that we can change how it looks. So we're going to do that again. Oh, so I'll click, check extrude, and we'll lift it out. Go to edit. I'll move this one a bit further and move it up a bit. So we've got two steps. I'm going to actually select these 4 polygons, these 4 vertices, if I can. Zoom in a bit so they're not covered by the, because these 4 are a little bit too high. for my liking. So I'm going to just drop... Oh, not those four, wrong four. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're a little bit too high for my liking, so I'm going to just drop them down a bit. Okay. In fact, I've changed my mind. I think there'll be an easier way to do this. If we do start with the spiral staircase. So we start with a spiral staircase builder, and we're going to just check slope floor, slope ceiling. That seems to be the solution. I wasn't aware those had those settings, but yes, we can do that. Okay, so that's made things a little bit easier. So if we go to 100, turn to counterclockwise, and if we just change the radius to about 500, I say. See if that's any better. Yeah, that's a little better. So we'll just calmly slot that in there. Lift it up. See if we can't line it up nicely with this. Okay, and we'll just move it across to centre it. There we are. So we've got a nice spiral floor. Now I don't think that's quite high enough, so I'm just going to double the step height. That's a little better. That's a little bit better. That's much better, in fact. Now, we have some concept art for this. Somewhere, I believe it's in here. If I just flick through these. Yes, here we are. The top of this section is here. We have these grates, and we're going to be turning left into a vertical room in a minute. So, first of all, I'm going to set up these influence points. So actually, I'm going to use spheres for these. Be a little bit easier and work a little bit nicer, I think. So we'll keep the camera to the outside of you. So you're going to be that there. Move this across. And lift that up. So we just move this back slightly. So we're just positioning these now. So that you can walk up and down this spiral staircase. So we'll just move this camera point down and across slightly. I'll just move that across because I think that's not quite centered. There we go. We'll just give that a quick test. Okay, so you can see the spiral staircase off in the distance. Let's just move forwards. Jump up here. Going and... Yep, and we start moving around the staircase, but then of course we're trapped. Now I see I haven't quite got that in line, so I'm going to just move that up a bit. There we are, that's a little better. So I'm sorry we're not going to be making any pretty graphics today, but we're just getting the functionality of the levels working. This is an important step. We have to make sure we do this first and this all works before we commit to making any graphics. Makes our lives a lot easier in the long run. see I'm keeping the camera outside the curve. And just allowing you to walk up this staircase as you go. So we should be able to walk up more than half the staircase now. But I'll keep going until we get to the end, and then I'll start on the path on the upper floor. That's right. Okay, that's next one. So, just got to keep doing this, setting the camera points to make sure the camera's in the right position. For the final thing, I'll probably go around and touch these up a bit, but I'm not going to bother with that now because that's going to be quite dull. Nearly there. There we go. We'll leave it at this. This will be the last one. So now we've got these points all the way up the stair. I'm going to just run and test this. Now, I'm going to be making a copy of this on the other side, but the geometry is going to have some additions to it because of the level design. So now we walk up here, go all the way around. It's a little bit creaky, but it's working fairly nicely. That's just a case of me going in and just neatening it all up later. Yes, I can go up the staircase and back again, quite happily. There we go. I'm going to move that last point because it's a little off to the side, so I'm just going to centre that one. Okay, now it's time to do the floor above. So the floor above, we need a box. What's the step height on this? Step height's 40, so actually we're going to make the Z 40 on this one. Okay. Now we're just going to line it up. Looks like 40 is a little too shallow, so we'll try 60. That's a little more promising. Yes, that's right. Okay, so we're going to just drag this over here, move it out slightly, zoom in a bit. Okay, so we've got a little gap, and plug that. Okay, so now we've started on our second floor. So I'm just going to make the Y about 1,000 here, I think, not 100. And I'm going to get another one of these capsules. Our influence points can come in spheres, capsules, or boxes. Any of those will work just nicely. So I'm going to change the radius to about 100. And the half height's going to be about 400. Oh, a little too short. Let's say 600. That'll push me over the edge. Yes, okay. Good. Because I'm going to be adding another box there in a second. Didn't mean to clone that. Let's just save that. Play. Let's just make sure all of this is still working. So the idea behind this control scheme is that it lets you, it gives you a lot of freedom in how you can move. Not true freedom, but it gives you, we're planning to design the level so it gives you as much freedom as you might want. And it has the added benefit of being that you can be absolutely certain that your platforming will happen as you expect it. One of the problems we've seen with some other 3D platformers is that it can be very difficult to judge distance in 3D, and so by keeping things in the side-scrolling format, we can allow it to the platforming to be treated in 2D, but still have a very dynamic 3D environment that lets you curve back and see things in the distance, which I think is very important. So the ability to see in the distance here where you've been before is quite important to the feel of the game, I think. And the ability at the start to see this spiral staircase is very useful for navigation and features such as that. So this is our, let's drag that over slightly, second floor. And I'm going to just make another box. Okay. Try and line that up. Now, this is a slightly interesting section of the level. Area we're building. It's not really a level, so just because we're not making a level-based game, it's all. The plan is to make all one huge environment that you can explore at will. So I'm just gonna. That's about 800, I think. For Y, we need about 500, and Z we can put back to 60. Just line this up again. Okay, so here's a new section. Actually, I don't want this to be central anymore because we're doing something off to the side now. So actually, I want this to go back here. Now, what we're going to do is create another box. It goes right here over the centre. In fact, I need to move this one slightly to just line it up on the side. Okay, so. And there's this box, which I'm going to line up again, and position right over the path. Now, I'm going to use a thing called subtractive BSPs. So far, I've only used additive BSPs. These are ones that add blocks to the environment, but subtractive ones can be extremely useful. Now, a subtractive BSP, if I just duplicate this one, so I've got a duplicate here. And I'm going to just make the X 180 and the Z 190. I'm going to drop the Z. Oops, I've spotted a problem with this. In fact, I'm going to change this so this is 160 and this is 180. Now, I'm going to just drop this so it matches the bottom. And bring it along so it's centered on that. Now, let's change the block type to subtractive, and you see we've got a big hole in the middle. That's extremely useful. So I'm just going to actually bring this back a bit. So I'm going to just change this to 500, no, 500, 400. 480. There is still a hole, but it's all inside at the moment, so I'm just going to bring this out and pull it in here. Okay, so now we've got this little tunnel you can walk into. Well, you can't walk into it yet because we have no paths for it. And I'm going to actually just make another subtractive block, and this time I'm going to make it 20 in the X, and in the Y I'm going to make it 100. I'm going to just drop this here. So what I'm building here is this section here. So you go in through this thing and you walk out to the side. You go in here and walk out here. So we need another circular influence point. In fact, what I'm going to do is, because we have a camera that's quite far away, I'm going to jump this up to 180. Just move it over slightly. So now the wall's open, but we have a sort of open side here so we can see into it. So I'm going to make another influence point sphere just here. It's going to have quite a small radius, maybe about 50. A bit small, maybe 100. Yeah, that's a little better. And if I just move that right over that hole, and then just drop editor camera down here, so that we're looking straight out. Not far away. Now I'm going to add another one of these in the doorway itself, with the camera around here. Now, the camera is probably going to clip through the wall at this point, unless I make a hole in it, which I might do. And I'm going to add... Let's take another look at the design. So we've got this bit off to the side where you can jump up onto these broken walkways. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a capsule influence point with a half height of about 300. And we're just going to rotate it by 90 degrees. And move the camera over here. Now, the interesting thing about this section is the fact that the camera is going to be moving through a wall. So we'll see what happens when we do that. Again, the camera system isn't quite finished, neither is the platforming, so we'll just go up this spiral staircase and keep heading forwards. Ah, well, there's a slight problem. This is due to my hindsight. Or lack of foresight, that's what I meant to say, in that I actually forgot to duplicate when I moved this one over. So actually what I want to do is give this one a bigger radius and drop the half height of this one, because what we don't want is for this influence point to be intersecting the point in the doorway, because otherwise you'll be moving towards the doorway and hitting the wall like we just saw. So We need another point in between that makes sure you get to a point where you can actually move through the doorway before you start moving. So we'll just save that and give it another test. And let's jump up there. Keep going. Blue. And now... you see we've hit another problem now, in that the doorway is actually slightly too short. So we're going to make this a bit taller. Fortunately, because we've used BSPs for this, this is quite easy. If we'd used meshes straight out, this would be a lot harder. So we'll change this up to 250. Bring it up. It's not being nice. Hold up. It looks like I'm 5 off, so I need to just decrease the snap size slightly. And just clip it on. Okay. Now we need this. This subtractive brush. We've jumped up this one's height by 50, so we need to do the same with this one, which is 230, I think. And then we just need to do the same here. Yeah, and that's giving us a nice thing. Now we've got to do the same with the doorway, because otherwise we're going to hit the same problem. No, don't click on the sky sphere. There we are. And we'll change that one to 230. And do the same snapping. Now let's see what happens. Oops, forgot to change path. Now I noticed something last time, and I think it's because I've made the radius on this one a bit too high, and that this one's considered a junction. And yes, look, now we can come out through the doorway and go back. We can make that very sharp turn in a tight space. The doorway isn't quite wide enough to fit Sam, unless very specific. Unless he's at a very specific position. Now, one of the key strengths and also a weakness of these points is that they allow you to deviate from the path very slightly. So if the doorway is exactly Sam's width, this will happen occasionally and he'll stop. So we're going to just make this doorway a little bit wider. Not too much of a problem. So we'll just jump that up from 100 to 120. Maybe 150. There we go. So he's got a little more room to walk around. Actually, I just remembered. Oops. We've also got this to deal with. So this influence point is now a little useless. So I'm going to just move it and move this one. So this one isn't considered a junction anymore. It was previously considered a junction because there were 3 influence points overlapping it. Which the engine takes to mean that you can go on long separate paths, which in most cases it will be. Oh dear. Now, as I said, there are some bugs in the engine, and that's one of them. It's a rare bug. We are looking at how to fix it. We've made some headway, but are still in the progress of working it out. This is still a very early working version of this form of the engine. So now when I get up here, this is no longer marked as a junction, and I go straight through that doorway and back again, no problem.